Life is full of surprises, and sometimes the paths we take lead us to unexpected situations. My story with my ex-wife, Claire, is one such example. It's a tale woven with themes of love, betrayal, resilience, and ultimately, finding my own peace in a tumultuous emotional landscape. I met Claire when I was just 21 years old and fresh out of college. Eager to dive into the real world, I had just started my career in the ed field. I was filled with ambition, dreaming of success and the life I wanted to create. Claire, at 35, was a lively school teacher, full of life, laughter, and passion for her work. We connected instantly. It felt like fate had brought us together. We shared common interests and dreams, and our conversations flowed easily. Our bond grew stronger, and we soon found ourselves envisioning a future together. The early years of our marriage were filled with laughter and love. We often reminisced about how we met and the magic of our connection. We took long walks, went on spontaneous trips, and spent countless evenings curled up on the couch, enjoying each other's company. I truly believed we were happy. For 5 years, our relationship seemed to flourish. We rarely fought, and our intimate life was vibrant and fulfilling. Claire had a unique way of making me feel loved and valued. Her affection was comforting. However, as the years passed, I started to notice subtle changes in her behavior. The warmth in her voice seemed to fade, and her once affectionate demeanor grew cold and distant. I felt like I was losing her, but I couldn't understand why. Looking back, I see that a dark shadow had fallen over our marriage, one that I didn't recognize at the time. A couple of months before I discovered her infidelity, our intimacy dwindled to almost nothing. What used to be daily expressions of love and affection turned into weekly gestures. And then, in the last 2 weeks before the truth unraveled, we barely touched at all. The moment of revelation came one afternoon when I found her phone left unattended. The screen was illuminated, displaying a naked selfie sent to someone whose name I didn't recognize. My heart shattered into a million pieces. I felt betrayed, lost, and utterly confused. I had always considered myself a good husband, doing my best to provide for her while she pursued her teaching career. The thought that she would be unfaithful was unimaginable. The following days were agonizing. Instead of confronting her immediately, I took photographs of her messages, documenting the betrayal as if I were gathering evidence for a case against her. Each text message I found was like a dagger, piercing through my heart. I discovered the exchanges between her and her affair partner, a man from the gym where I had been paying for her membership. Every message felt like a personal attack, a betrayal of everything I thought we had built together. I felt utterly humiliated. On the day I decided to leave, I knew I had to take control of my life. I had spoken to a divorce attorney who assured me I would be fine. My financial situation wasn't dire, and I had no claims on Claire's inheritance from her father, which amounted to a significant sum. I loaded my belongings into my car, preparing to start a new chapter without her. It was a clean break. I laid out the divorce papers on the kitchen table, a stark reminder of our once promising future. As I drove away, I felt a mix of relief and sorrow. The weight of her betrayal hung heavy on my shoulders, but I was determined to move forward. Claire's frantic calls and texts flooded my phone, apologies, pleas for forgiveness, and desperate cries to reconsider. But I ignored them all. My decision was final. My former friends, whom Claire had manipulated against me during our marriage, also tried to contact me. They bombarded my phone with accusations, calling me a coward for ghosting her. But I was no longer interested in defending myself to people who didn't truly understand what I had been through. The only call I made was to her affair partner's wife. Upon learning the truth, she promptly ended her relationship with him. and I felt a sense of justice in that moment. Claire quickly moved on with her life. Just months after our divorce was finalized, she married her affair partner. I had to face her once more in front of a judge, where I felt a profound sense of loss. She never glanced my way, her head was bowed in shame. The man she had chosen over me sat beside her, flexing his muscles in a ridiculous display of bravado. I shook my head, realizing that he was oblivious to the truth of their relationship. In that moment, I realized I had to focus on my own healing and growth. After the divorce, I immersed myself in my work and personal growth. At 25, I was free to focus on myself for the first time in years. I started reconnecting with friends I had neglected during my marriage. I made it a priority to build a supportive social circle and invested time in hobbies I had put on hold. I dabbled in photography and took up hiking, finding solace in nature and the beauty around me. I also focused on my career in IT. I enjoyed the challenge of my work and the sense of accomplishment that came with it. I poured my energy into projects and began to excel professionally. Time passed, and I earned a promotion along with an increase in my salary, which allowed me to save money and plan for my future. My new apartment became a sanctuary where I could be myself, free from the emotional manipulation that had plagued my marriage. However, despite my success, I struggled to establish meaningful relationships. I went on a few dates, but I found it hard to open up to anyone. It wasn't that I hadn't moved on, I was terrified of being hurt again. Claire's betrayal left deep scars on my heart that took longer to heal than I had anticipated. I had loved deeply, only to feel discarded like trash. Although I focused on my career and enjoyed my newfound independence, I couldn't shake the feeling of being emotionally distant from others. The loneliness crept in at times, reminding me of the love I once had. I still found myself thinking about Claire and the life we once shared. I was no longer in love with her, but memories of our past lingered like a shadow. I wondered if I would ever be able to trust someone again, or if I was destined to remain alone. Fast forward 6 years, I was living my life on my own terms when I received an unexpected message from Claire. I hadn't blocked her number because I thought she wouldn't try to contact me again. But there it was, her name flashing on my screen. At first, her messages seemed innocent enough. She reached out with friendly greetings, asking how I was doing. My heart raced with confusion. Part of me wanted to ignore her, to pretend I hadn't seen the messages, but another part of me was curious. I had spent so much time trying to forget her, yet here she was, reaching out after all those years. I hesitated before deciding to reply, cautiously allowing myself to engage in a conversation. As we exchanged messages, I could feel a mix of emotions: anger, sadness, and a flicker of hope. Claire apologized for her past actions, expressing regret for how things ended. She claimed that she had spent years reflecting on our relationship and the mistakes she had made. It felt surreal to hear her voice in my mind after so long. Gradually, our conversations became more frequent. Claire shared stories about her life, her marriage, and the challenges she faced. I listened as she spoke about her struggles, the loneliness she felt despite being in a relationship. It was clear that she had experienced her own share of pain. I couldn't help but feel a sense of compassion for her. Yet, despite the rekindled connection, I remained cautious. I still carried the scars of our past, and I was terrified of getting hurt again. I tried to approach our conversations with an open heart, but I couldn't shake the doubts that lingered in my mind. What if she was only reaching out because she was unhappy in her current life? What if this was just another game? As weeks turned into months, we continued to communicate. Each message brought back memories of our past, both the good and the painful. I found myself reminiscing about our early days together, the laughter we shared, and the dreams we once had. Yet, I also remembered the heartbreak and betrayal that had shattered my trust. Eventually, Claire suggested that we meet in person. The thought filled me with anxiety. Part of me wanted to see her, to confront the past and find closure, but another part of me feared reopening old wounds. After much deliberation, I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop, feeling a mix of excitement and dread. When the day finally arrived, I felt nervous as I approached the cafe. My heart raced, and my palms were sweaty. I spotted her sitting at a table, looking both familiar and different. Claire smiled as I approached, her eyes lighting up. She looked beautiful, but the weight of our shared history hung heavily in the air. As we sat down and began to talk, I felt a rush of emotions. Claire spoke candidly about her life since our separation, sharing the struggles she faced in her marriage. She expressed regret for her choices and admitted that she had taken my love for granted. I listened, trying to process her words, while also guarding my heart. Our conversation flowed easily, as if no time had passed. We laughed and reminisced about old memories, but the underlying tension of our past remained. I felt a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, we could find a way to move forward. However, I also sensed the danger of getting swept up in nostalgia. I had worked hard to rebuild my life after the heartbreak, and I wasn't willing to throw it all away for the sake of rekindling a past that had caused me so much pain. As we finished our coffees, Claire looked me in the eyes, her expression earnest. "I know I hurt you deeply," she said, her voice quivering. "I'm not asking for your forgiveness, but I want you to know that I'm truly sorry. I've spent so many nights thinking about what I lost, and I wish I could turn back time." In that moment, I felt a rush of emotions, anger, sadness, and a profound sense of closure. I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts before responding. "Claire, it's been a long time since we've seen each other. I've done a lot of healing, and I'm proud of the person I've become. I'm not sure I can ever fully forgive what happened, but I appreciate your honesty." Her eyes filled with tears, and I realized that she was sincere in her regret. In that moment, I saw the vulnerability behind her facade of strength, and I felt a connection reignite between us. But instead of diving back into the past, I knew we needed to approach this with caution. As we said our goodbyes, I felt a strange sense of relief. Meeting Claire had been a leap of faith, one that forced me to confront my past and the pain I had buried for so long. I left the cafe with a sense of closure, knowing that I had given her the opportunity to express her regrets. In the following weeks, we continued to stay in touch. Our conversations evolved from painful memories to light-hearted banter, and I began to see glimpses of the woman I had fallen in love with all those years ago. However, I also understood that our relationship could never return to what it once was. We were different people now, shaped by our experiences. I still held on to the lessons I had learned throughout my journey about love, trust, and the importance of self-worth. While Claire was a part of my past, I had worked hard to build a future that was independent of her. As time passed, I found myself at peace with our history. I recognized that while Claire had played a significant role in my life, I was no longer defined by our relationship. I had learned to embrace the present and let go of the past, allowing myself to love again without fear. Ultimately, I discovered that healing is a journey, not a destination. I continued to invest in my personal growth, attending therapy and exploring new interests. I embraced the idea that my past had shaped me, but it didn't have to dictate my future. I began to take small steps toward opening my heart to new relationships, knowing that love could be beautiful again. As I reflect on my journey with Claire, I understand that our story was not just about betrayal, but also about resilience and personal growth. We were two flawed individuals who experienced the highs and lows of love. And though our paths diverged, we ultimately emerged stronger. Now, as I stand on the precipice of a new chapter in my life, I am filled with hope and excitement. I know that love will find me again, and when it does, I'll be ready to embrace it wholeheartedly. I have come to understand that true love requires vulnerability, trust, and the willingness to grow together. Claire will always be a part of my past, but I have learned to cherish the lessons and experiences we shared. As I move forward, I carry those memories with me, knowing that they have shaped the person I am today, a person ready to love, to be loved, and to embrace whatever life has in store. I was taken aback. Why now? After years of silence, why was she trying to reconnect? Initially, I ignored her messages, but she persisted. Claire expressed regret for how things had ended, and even admitted she had made a grave mistake in throwing away our relationship. She pleaded for a chance to speak, insisting that I was the best thing that ever happened to her. It wasn't long before the tone of her messages shifted. She began sharing details about her current situation, claiming her affair partner mistreated her. I felt a mixture of disbelief and anger. The same woman who had discarded me was now reaching out for help? I wanted to yell at her for her selfishness. Her messages became more desperate. She shared how she was struggling, feeling trapped in a relationship that was causing her pain. Part of me wanted to empathize. After all, I knew what it felt like to be betrayed and hurt. But another part of me was hardened by the years of healing I had gone through. I refused to be her emotional crutch. Setting boundaries at this point, I decided to reach out to a mutual acquaintance who had once been part of Claire's circle of friends. I told him about Claire's situation and what she had disclosed to me. I asked him to pass the information along to the proper authorities if her claims were true. My intention was not to rescue her, but rather to ensure that she had support from those who had once cared for her. Looking back, I realized that I still cared enough to send that message, even if it was laced with bitterness. I wanted to wash my hands of the situation and make it clear that I would not be drawn back into her manipulative games. My acquaintance responded by calling me an evil person, claiming I was abandoning Claire in her time of need. I couldn't believe the audacity of his statement. I had suffered immensely because of her choices. I had lost years of my life and endured a painful divorce. Yet here I was being vilified for trying to help in the most detached way possible. I was fed up and blocked him without hesitation. After this, I decided to log into Facebook for the first time in ages. I wanted to see if anyone had reached out to me during my struggles. What I discovered was disheartening. Not a single person who had once called me a coward for leaving Claire had attempted to contact me to offer their support. Instead, many of her friends flooded my notifications, sending messages that praised Claire and condemned me. They claimed that I was the villain in this story, abandoning a woman in need. Their hypocrisy was staggering. Did they not realize they were supporting someone who had betrayed me? Feeling overwhelmed, I decided to take a stand. I screen captured all of Claire's texts, including her confessions and apologies from years past. I posted them on social media, revealing the truth behind her narrative. It was liberating. I was no longer the silent victim. I was reclaiming my voice. Closure and moving on. The reaction was immediate. Many of Claire's friends turned their backs on her, realizing the extent of her betrayal. For the first time, I felt a sense of closure. I had shed the weight of her manipulations and false narratives. I no longer cared about what others thought of me. I knew the truth. Claire continued to text me, expressing her outrage over my posts. She accused me of never loving her and labeled me as an evil person. I remained silent. There was nothing left to say. I had moved on from that chapter of my life, and I refused to be dragged back into her drama. It's now been a few weeks since this series of events unfolded, and I feel lighter than I have in years. I've had time to reflect on my journey and what I want for the future. Claire's betrayal taught me invaluable lessons about trust, love, and resilience. I am no longer the naive young man who fell in love with a woman who shattered my heart. I have grown stronger and more self-aware. I cherish the friendships I have built since my divorce and value the lessons that heartbreak has taught me. I've learned to prioritize my mental health, focus on my career, and embrace my independence. Moving forward, I plan to open my heart to new possibilities. I no longer fear vulnerability. I'm ready to embrace love again, but this time with clear boundaries and an understanding of my worth. As I look back on my relationship with Claire, I see it for what it truly was, a valuable life experience that shaped me into the person I am today. I wish her well, but I also know that I deserve so much more than what she could offer. Conclusion: the power of resilience. Life is a journey filled with ups and downs, but it's how we respond to those challenges that defines us. The pain I felt during my marriage, the betrayal, and the eventual separation were all integral parts of my growth. I've learned that sometimes the people we love the most can cause us the deepest pain, but those experiences can also lead us to a better understanding of ourselves. In the end, I've discovered the strength that lies within me, a strength that I never knew I had. I am ready to step into the next chapter of my life, armed with the lessons of the past and a heart open to new possibilities. If you find yourself in a similar situation, remember that you are not alone. Your journey may be challenging, but every step forward is a testament to your resilience. Cherish the lessons learned, let go of the pain, and embrace the beauty of new beginnings.